Good morning. Good morning. I'm Paul Fort, CEO of LTC Partners, and I'm pleased to welcome you today to 100 Arboretum and to what I'm sure you will find a very special morning. Before I introduce today's distinguished speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the presence here today of our distinguished guests. Colonel John Pogoric, commander of the 157th Air Refueling Wing. Colonel Paul Loisel, Air National Guard KC-46 Conversion Chief, 157th. Dr. Don Roussel, Wing Director of Psychological Health, 157th. Former Governor Craig Benson, the 79th Governor of New Hampshire. There he is, Governor. Commander Pete Burdett and his wife, Susie, U.S. Navy retired. Captain Jim Spotts, U.S. Coast Guard retired. Kevin Forrest, Associate Director of the Manchester, New Hampshire VA. Jack Heath, host of iHeartRadio's New Hampshire Today with Jack Heath. Please join me in a round of applause. As you know, November 11th is Veterans Day, the 100th anniversary of the Great Armistice ending World War I. We thought it would be fitting to recognize and thank veterans of our own staff. They represent just about every branch of the service and have been instrumental in building our reputation as a first-rate federal government contractor supporting and administering high-quality benefit programs for some 5 million civilian and uniformed services members around the world. I'd like to ask all of our LTC Partners veterans to stand and be recognized. Every state is proud of its native sons and daughters, especially those who have served our country. New Hampshire, with more than 115,000 veterans out of a population of only 1.3 million persons, is justifiably proud of its service record. Of the many who have served and are still serving, few can claim the credit of Brigadier General Donald Bolduc and his wife Sharon, who have pledged their lives to our country for more than 35 years, enduring various hardships and long separations. The General's biography is, alas, too rich to summarize here. Let me just say a few things. The General is the recipient of numerous medals and distinctions, including 2 awards for valor, 5 Bronze Star medals, and 2 Purple Hearts. He survived 10 deployments, 8 combat tours, a bomb blast, numerous firefights, and a helicopter crash. Those of you who have read Doug Stanton's Horse Soldiers, the basis for the film 12 Strong, know that Bolduc, then a master sergeant in Special Forces, was one of the very first soldiers to enter Afghanistan after 9/11. Bolduc was sent to a place called Karshi-Khanabad, K2, in Uzbekistan, an old military base used by the Russians in their 10-year struggle against the Mujahideen fighters. He was to turn a place of mud and debris into a staging area for the invasion of Afghanistan by US forces. This is a very dangerous place in a dangerous time. Bolduc later led important and successful missions against the Taliban, working closely with the president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai. These included the establishment of village stability operations, which were especially effective in the rural areas of the country. Eventually, Bolduc served as Commander, Special Operations Command, Africa, filling a number of command positions, including Battalion Commander of the 1st Battalion, 3rd Special Forces Group, the Desert Eagles, and also as Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force Commander in Afghanistan. The Desert Eagles played a key role in Operation Medusa, a 2006 joint effort by US and Canadian forces that attacked Taliban fighters to the west of Kandahar with tanks, artillery, and air power. This highly successful campaign received special commendation by the Canadian government and military, an unusual recognition. General Bolduc was not only known as a field commander, he was known for being outspoken. He was one of the only active duty general officers to speak out about the serious problems associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, from which he himself has suffered. The general, who retired in 2017, continues to talk openly about this subject and the benefit of service dogs like his 2-year-old shepherd, Victor, who is here with us today. I've had the privilege of spending some private time with the general and Victor over the past year. It has been inspirational, poignant, and humbling. Don Bolduc is not only a bona fide American hero, but a man of character. He is a leader, something often talked about in American society, but from what I can tell, exceedingly rare. The general will speak for about 40 minutes and then take some questions. We have microphones in the room to assist you. Please identify yourself before asking a question. And now, would you please join me in welcoming General Don Bolduc.
Okay, very good. Well, Paul, sir, thank you very much for that very warm and wonderful introduction. I do appreciate it. Thank you for recognizing my wife, Sharon, who is the backbone of our family and deserves the lion's share credit of any success that I have had. She has been a stabilizing factor in my life and many other people's lives, and I'm honored to have her as my best friend and my wife, so thank you very much, Sharon. Appreciate it. All right. I want to thank you also for inviting me here. I want to thank everybody here for coming. I know you're working. I know this is a Friday, and I know a lot of you like to work from home on Friday. So I'm glad that you are here today, and I want to thank you for sharing this time with me, my wife, Victor, and the other distinguished guests here. I want to thank these gentlemen here from the National Guard for coming. I realize that all the protocols have been recognized by you, so I will say protocols have been observed, and that way I don't have to redo everything, right? It saves me some time. So protocols are recognized, so everyone that was recognized. There's an individual in here, though, that I want to highlight. Tony, where are you, my friend? He's in the back of the room. So Tony comes from a wonderful special operation background, United States Air Force. He's a special tactics squadron member, senior non-commissioned officer. Anyone that does not know what the PJs do, they save lives, right? And they, at least 3 times in my life, have saved my life one time and the lives of the men and women under my command 2 other times. And so that's a huge recognition for you, and I want to thank you very much for what you have done for our country, and I also want to thank you very much for what the PJs have done and are doing today to support our missions around the world. So God bless you, and thank you very much. Before I get started today, I'm feeling particularly motivated today because every day I wake up and I get to see my young granddaughter, and every day when I see her, she always tells me that I'm very handsome. And I realize that she is only 4 years old, but she's figured out the straight line distance to my heart and how to get desserts out of me early in the morning when her grandmother and her mother aren't looking. And so, but why I'm in a particularly good mood was that was validated today by a young lady who also told me I was handsome. So I'm thinking my granddaughter might have something here, right? So I want to thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. What occupied my thoughts today when I got up, when I was driving over here, was pretty amazing, I think. I was just driving over here, and I was thinking how wonderful seat warmers are in cars. And I mentioned to my wife, this is great, right? I mean, it's America, and my butt's warm, my back warm. One of the things that I hated when I was in the field was getting my butt wet and cold, because anyone who's ever been in the field for a long time knows that after that, it starts to chafe and get really itchy. And so the Army came up with this powder called monkey butt. And I was like, wow, this is great stuff. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm living the dream. My butt's warm, my back's warm, I'm dry, I'm driving here, I got my beautiful wife next to me, Victor's laying across my lap, and this is just great to be an American. So anyways, that was my big thought for today. I just thought I'd share that. This is a very historic time for us, right? We got the 100th anniversary of the armistice coming up for World War I. And what I wanted to do to kind of focus us on what I'm going to talk about today, which is post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, sleep disorder, pain management, toxicity, those things that are really plaguing our active duty members, service members, and our veterans today, right? And what we need to really focus on in order to improve their quality of life, because they've earned that, right? But before I do that, I want everyone in here who is not a veteran to raise your hand. Look at that. Now, keep your hands up. Without your support, the veterans would have nothing. So, I want to thank you. So thank you very much. And it's men like Paul and the people that work for him and with him that allow us to do it. There's a gentleman in here by the name of Jack Heath in the back of the room. Everybody knows him by name, knows what he does for veterans, how he gives veterans a voice, and he is a straightforward, straight-thinking guy. A lot of people in the military have problems with folks from New Hampshire, right? Because we speak truth to power all the time. It's like, whoa, man, that came to me straight, right? And that's what we do. We have a motto in this state called live free or die. It doesn't get any more simpler than that. Everywhere I went in the world, every country I went, 28 countries in Africa, for an example. I'm talking to my counterparts and they would ask me, hey, where are you from in the States? And I'd say, well, I'm from New Hampshire. First thing out of their mouth was live free or die, right? They couldn't point New Hampshire out on a map, right? But they know the motto, right? And that makes me feel good, right? Because I come from a state where we speak straight. I come from Laconia, New Hampshire. Now, it's the Lakes region. It's the city of lakes. But Laconia was the capital of Sparta way back when. And it was named Laconia because Spartans were considered laconic, right? They speak straightforward to the point. They don't mince words. If you don't like it, well, then we got 300 Spartans for you, right? That you can deal with. So anyways, it's great to be from New Hampshire. It's great to have this kind of opportunity to come back and talk about some of these things in New Hampshire that I think are affecting our service members in the Guard, are affecting our communities, and we need to do it. And so I want to thank those that were not veterans that recognize this, because less than 1% serve, and I say we need to mobilize the other 99% to help them, right? They've earned that. So I want to thank you all very, very much for that. So God bless you. So here it is. Every day of your life, you got to have a why. If you don't have a why, forget about it. You're going to be lost. You got to have a why. That gives you purpose, direction, and motivation. That allows you to do what it is you need to do. And this is my why, right here, okay? I thought that after my third rotation, this would be it. 16 names, right? 16 names of service members that I sent into combat that I could not take home, right? But it did not end that way. I have 2 boxes here that I filled with the dog tags, and there's 72 dog tags in there. between my service in Afghanistan and Africa. And so, how hard is it for me to have survivor's guilt, right? 72 families. 72 families that I wrote letters to, that I talked to families, that I talked to mom and dads and grandmothers and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts, children. Pretty significant stuff. Some of them, rightly so, were angry, right? And others were not. I stay in contact with a number of them, but the bottom line is this is a high price to pay, right? And we may think that the numbers over the last 17 years pale in comparison to the numbers that we lost in World War I and II and Korea and Vietnam, but it was a different kind of warfare today than it is then. And just one loss of blood and treasure in our country, one son, one daughter, is too high a price to pay as far as I'm concerned. So we need to make sure that we take care of them, you know? And we have the assistant director here from the VA who has taken time out of his schedule to be here, to listen to me talk, to get kind of a perspective from me, right? Which I am very honored for. And he works for a great director, Al Montoya, I know he would be here if he could possibly be here, but he sent his #2 guy, which is good. This is the kind of focus that our VA is putting on integrating with our communities and understanding our veterans and their needs so they can make it better for us, and I think that's hugely important. So we go to World War I, right? Charles Whittlesey. Anybody know Charles Whittlesey? Charles Whittlesey, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, lawyer from New York, was an active protester against World War I, right? When the president decided we were going, he became an officer in the newly established 77th Metropolitan Division in New York. They were sent to France, and on October 2nd, they began the Meuse-Argonne offensive from October 2nd to October 8th, right? He was part of a 3-division movement, right? He was the center battalion, okay? He had American battalion on his left and a French battalion on his right, and they were going to take Hill 198. The orders from the general officers above him was no retreat authorized, right? So, he wasn't a very popular officer because of his views against the war. He was not a West Pointer. He wasn't a professional officer, but he was a good leader. And they knew he was a good leader, so they gave him those leadership responsibilities as major in charge of a battalion, right? And he did his best, right? And so he followed those orders, and he was the center battalion, and he did not retreat. But the battalions on his left and the battalions on his right did, leaving him out there. And there's a book and there's a movie called The Lost Battalion. And from October 2nd to October 8th, he went into that area with 600 men and came out with less than 200. He was shelled by friendly fire. They were sniped at. They were burned and attacked by Germans with flamethrowers. They were mortared, and he never quit, right? He got numerous notes from the German commander who started to respect this battalion because they weren't going to go anywhere. And they even knew who he was. They said, this is being led by a guy who's not a professional soldier, right? He's a lawyer, right? And he's not quitting, right? And he didn't quit, and he stayed there, and he led his soldiers by presence, right? And then when it was all said and done on October 8th, they took that hill. They took the ground. The Germans retreated, and 5 weeks later, the war ended. He was, and 2 other of his officers who were given the Medal of Honor, and numerous Distinguished Service Crosses and other Silver Stars and Bronze Stars, you name it, for the rest of the folks inside the unit for what they did. He comes home, and he's struggling with post-traumatic stress. He's struggling with the carnage that he witnessed. But during that time, if you had those kind of feelings and you had those kind of responses, you were considered weak. You weren't considered strong. And so everyone around him knew how he was struggling, and he tried to go back and become a lawyer, you know, restart his law firm, and he just couldn't do it. So on 1921, he took a cruise, and somewhere in the Atlantic, between New York and Cuba, he jumped off the boat and committed suicide. Right? And here's a Medal of Honor winner. Audie Murphy struggled with alcohol in the horrors of war. No help for him, right? And there are plenty of stories like this that go unrecognized, but we know better today. We didn't know better, trust me. 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, when I was suffering with it, no way, no way, you didn't say anything. You kept your mouth shut, you did your job, you moved out and moved forward. But who was being affected? The families were being affected, right? The service member was being affected. They were turning to drugs and alcohol, and they were self-medicating, and they were being disciplined for that, and their careers were being ruined, but they were doing it because it was a way for them to cope. We didn't recognize it. 2010 rolls around, we're starting to get a little smarter about it. The NFL is starting to get a little smarter about traumatic brain injury, right? People are starting to share studies. We're understanding the effects that it has. And then we're trying to change the whole culture and the whole narrative to, hey, you're strong if you ask for help, not weak. But that hasn't stuck. And I'm going to tell you the reason why it hasn't stuck. It hasn't stuck because the leadership has not come forward and said, I have a problem, you have a problem, you're not going to lose your job, you're not going to lose your clearance, you're not going to get become non-deployable, we're not going to kick you out of the service, we're going to support you, we're going to get you help. Because you can get help. You may never get rid of your PTS, but you can manage its symptoms, right? You can manage its symptoms. Where's my little clicker thing? So, I got my clicker thing here. I'm going to talk through this just for a second, because it gets to Whittlesey and the reason why commanders need to have presence on the battlefield, need to get out there and talk to their people, need to understand what they're look at them in their face. This is my command sergeant major. That is me, of course. These are my men. They just got done with a huge battle that you highlighted, sir. Saved NATO. It was just unbelievable. I'm patting them on the back. These guys are exhausted from about 4 days of continuous battle. So my sergeant major and I went out there, and we stayed out with them for 2 nights, and me and my sergeant major pulled the first night watch so all these guys could sleep, right? Because I looked into their eyes and I saw, wow, they're exhausted. They've lost men close to them, right? So they needed some rest. And there's no way to get them rest, so me and my command sergeant major pulled an all-nighter for them so they could sleep. My company commander, Major Hill, woke up in the middle of the night in a panic because he thought he was supposed to be on guard duty. And I go, hey man, sit down, I got this, right? When they got up the next morning and we had the battalion bringing out hot chow in the middle of a combat zone, and they had all the rest they needed, I had a completely different unit. I mean, look at these guys' faces. Look at this guy's face right here. He's freaking exhausted, and he knows it's not over. We had 4 more months of this, right? So that's pretty cool. Anyways, I'm going to move on. So, what is a veteran? For those that may not know what a veteran is, this is the kind of guy that you're going to invest in when he comes out of the service. But he needs some help. Because what he loses is connection, purpose, sense of belonging, being part of something bigger than himself. He takes off this uniform, he hangs it in the closet, he's no longer sergeant, lieutenant colonel, colonel, general. The service has separated him. They're not calling you anymore. The VA is doing its best, but the connection between DOD and the VA is not what it should be yet. They're working on it. There's this gap. Okay, say this is active duty. Here's the gap. This is the VA, right? A lot of them fall in this gap. And I'm looking at a mother now whose son fell in that gap, who is now, because he was able to get help, he's back on track, he's gotten a job, he's got his self-confidence back, he's got all this back, but he struggled with it. This is like the Pointe de Hook, right? Normandy, going up that cliff, the Rangers took it, barrage, enemy fire, but now you're in the Pointe de Hook of transition, and it's a bureaucratic nightmare for you. And if you don't understand how to maneuver through it, you're going to get lost. And it's going to be tragic. And that's why I thank people that help our veterans, that make that connection for them, give them the purpose that they need. This warm handshake. Paul, reach out. Sir, grab a hand. That's what we need right there. VA and DOD, the handshake, the warm handshake, pulling that veteran across. My wife and I struggled with it. I'm a retired general and I struggled with it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I got stuck in phone call hell, on wait hell, what's that called? The internet hell, you know? My wife says it's the toughest time in our career was getting out of the military in the first year of transition. The toughest time, right? So it doesn't matter if you did 1 enlistment, 2 enlistments, or spent 33 years. The effect is the same. You don't know the third thing, and I'll get into that in a minute. But this is all we're looking for. Most importantly, nobody is looking for a handout. And I like to say that because, oh, geez, we have another fundraiser for veterans. Oh my God, how many fundraisers are we going to have? All right, as many as we need in order to get this right, right? To give them what they earned, because the federal government can't do it by itself. It requires communities, right? What is PTSD? Well, this is the definition that the smart people come up with, okay? What I think it is, okay, is more what I think it's not. You got to drop that D. It's PTS. It's not a disorder. The brain reorders. The reason I have PTS is because my brain reordered itself so that I could last longer than a day in combat. And if I couldn't last long, if my brain didn't do that, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you, right? So my brain does that. But when I come home, it's hard for me to reintegrate. I feel lost. I have all these stresses coming up, right? From driving around, from large crowds, large noises, all these things. Because nobody's taught me how to mitigate those, how to deal with them, how to understand the triggers, right? Once I went for therapy, which I'll get into later, I learned how to do this, and I became much more functional. I spent so much time in combat, not because the unit was always sending me there, it's because I was volunteering to go back, because I felt normal there and abnormal at home. I was thought in my own mind that I was less of a problem to my family gone than I was when I was home. That's pretty sad. But that's the fact of the matter, right? And if we're going to get this right, leaders need to say that. They need to back up their programs. It's not a pathology, it's not a mental illness, it's not a disorder, it's a survival mechanism, and all we need to do is a little bit of training. And we'll be able to deal with it, and we'll be more successful. So you're strong when you ask for help, not weak, right? And that's the message that needs to come across, and it's hugely important. It's a survival mechanism. You drop the D. When I talked to special ops guys, they were like, hey, we don't like that D. I don't have a disorder, right? Whoa, I don't have a disorder, right? All right, great. Well, I'm going to start calling it PTS, right? Science hasn't caught up to that yet. Some organizations have dropped the D, and that's good. I think it's good. It's just a better way to communicate. Understand your environment and understand the people that you have to, that you're dealing with. And it requires commanders' presence, commanders talking to troops, commanders backing up the programs by putting their own skin in the game. So that's what really that's all about. This is the program that we set up in Special Operations Command Africa, right? So I knew I had problems in 2005 and 6 and 7, right? And I continued to deploy every single year up to 2013 to Afghanistan. And then I went on an assignment to Africa, right? And my headquarters was in Stuttgart, Germany. And I came home one day and this lovely lady was sitting there and she had this look on her face and I knew, I don't know, what did I do? Leave the toilet seat up, I didn't take out the trash. And she had that look on her face, right? And it had everything to do with me and the fact that it was time to get some help. And she laid the law down. She said, hey, you gotta go get some help. I can't take it, the kids can't take it, the dog and the cat can't take it. You need to go get some help. And so I did. I went to Launchstool Regional Medical Center. Nurse Sarah McNary had a program. She put me through a complete exam. I got diagnosed with PTS. They did an MRI on my brain. They found the spot from TBI. They were able to see that spot, and then they're able to determine how that affects your brain with balance and vision and so on and so forth, memory. So they were able to put me into a therapy program for all of that, pain management issues. I've had both my hips replaced and 3 discs in my necks replaced from combat injuries, right? So managing that pain was a huge problem for me. I was in constant pain. And then I went through a sleep disorder, sleep study. I have sleep apnea. I would fall, you know, I'd stop breathing at night, this, that, and the other thing. In the Army, if you tell someone you got more than 4 hours of sleep, you're in trouble, right? Every soldier you talk to, how much sleep did you get last night? 4 hours. Oh. And the guy that you're talking to says, well, I only got 2. You know, he's going to undercut you every single time, right? Well, it'd be, you know, and it's not good to get that, right? I mean, your body needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you have less than 5 hours of sleep a day over a prolonged period of time, which was my entire career, it starts to mess with your head, right? It's equivalent, at least the scientists say, it's equivalent to having 0.1% alcohol in your body. So I was shit-faced at work every day. You know what I mean? It was like, God bless, woo, you know? And my guys are probably like, where the hell did that come from? Don't worry, he's shit-faced, you know? I don't know. I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. So anyways, you got to get that fixed. And then all the malaria medications and the I don't know, what's that? There was a whole bunch of things they were worried about that we were going to get, that they put us through a regimen of shots. That is so toxic for your body. But we're not doing anything about it, right? And I'm involved in a bunch of studies right now to get the government to own up to their responsibilities. It's easy. It's easy to own up for the response. It's cheaper in the long run. Hey, we gave you this medication. Yeah, we didn't really tell you what the side effects are going to be. We really didn't understand the side effects, but we knew we were giving it to you so you didn't get malaria. That's great. I didn't get malaria. But I got all kinds of other things, right? So just fix it. It's easy. But no, we're going to argue about it. We're not going to take responsibility for it. It's all about leadership. Just take responsibility for it. Yes, we gave it to you. We didn't understand it. We put you, and they've changed it they changed the medication like 3 times. Now I'm on this Malarone stuff that makes me throw up, right? But I don't get malaria, right? But I'm throwing up constantly. Ask my wife, you know? So you take it the day before you go into theater, and then you take it for a week afterwards. So I'd go into theater, I'd come back, and for, you know, the remainder of the time I was on that medication when I was at home, I'm throwing up, you know? It's not fun, right? After a while, it's not fun throwing up every day or every other day, right? So anyways, you got to do something about it. So I went through all that, and I got whatever my new normal is, right? I became better, right? And took 2 years. It takes about 10,000 hours, right? And you got to keep doing it. I still go to the VA. I have a great therapist, talks to me every 6 weeks. That's the schedule that we're on. It's great stuff. I take a low doses of medication to keep the edge off a little bit, right? But it doesn't make me loopy. It's not designed to make you loopy. They've come a long way with this medication, right? It doesn't make me spin around and drool and, you know, it doesn't make me do any of that stuff, right? That other, you know, psychological medications would do. I mean, you guys know this stuff, right? So I'm perfectly fine. But if I say today in the Army, I have PTS and I'm on a low dosage of medication, I am now non-deployable. And now the policy is if you get put on a non-deployable list, they're going to process you out of the Army. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of talent. That's a lot of experience that we're just going to, you know, punt off the battlefield. That's just not right. That's not how we should be handling it. You know what I'm saying? It's really not. So we came up with this program. After 2 years, I said it wasn't enough for me to help myself. I had to help others. So I got with my command leadership and I said, hey, this is what I've done. This is why I've done it. And they said, oh my God, geez, this is going to make a huge difference. We got to do it. So we thought about it and we came up with this, right? Led by the leadership, destigmatize. Come up with a program, support the program. Get at the root causes, physical, mental, spiritual health, boom. Make the bridge to PTS growth, resiliency, up into readiness, body, mind, spirit as best it could be. And then I went out, wasn't enough. I said, hey, if I'm really going to back this up in the eyes and minds of my guys and gals, I got to come out publicly. So the New York Times reporter came in, did a story on me, and hey, I got an outpouring of support from everybody except the chain of command above me. And I was told by somebody above me that this is not going to go well for you. Now, there are other elements involved with why I retired as a one-star general. One of them is my wife thought it was time to get out. The other one is probably coming out publicly on active duty for this, because it wasn't the message that the leadership wanted. They didn't tell me to stop, so I didn't. I kept doing it. And what we did at the end of the day, and the other one is probably my own, you know, I got to be honest, you know, hell, it's probably my own, you know, professional and personal shortfalls, right? I mean, that's always factored into whether you're going to get promoted or not, right? So there's some elements there, some of them under my control, some of them not under my control, some of them my fault, some of them not my fault, but the bottom line is nobody should be negatively affected by asking for help or by saying, I got help. Nobody, right? And that's my message, right? And everybody should be rushing to the sound of, I need help, right? Because these guys have rushed to the sound of the gun when the country needed them, right? Now we need to rush to the sound of the help when they say, I need some help. And we need to do it without judging, right? And help them out. I mean, that's hugely important, I think. So anyways, because at my rank, nobody really cares how much I know. They could care less how much I know. I'm a general. They probably figured, you know, he probably knows a lot. He got to general officer. That's great stuff. They really want to know how much I care. That's what they want to know about leadership. And that's where leadership makes the difference in any organization, how much you care. Not so much how you know, what you know. If that's all part of the deal, right? But you got to try and help these folks achieve balance, right? And this is hugely important because this gets me right here, right? With this beautiful lady on the lake in Jack Heath's boat, right? Thank you, Jack. God bless America. And this is just reiterating a lot of things, but my point here is this is Australia's national cemetery. And I've been to national cemeteries all over the world, both ours and others, right? Never have I run across in a national cemetery recognition of those that have died in training and those that have died of the psychological effects of war, except here. So I said, wow, I got to take a picture of that, and someday I'm going to use it. And you can see all the poppies around it because I visited there and talked to the Australian Army and Special Ops about this subject because they were having problems with suicides and other things that were happening to their Special Ops soldiers, which was affecting their mission, their bottom line, readiness, right? Readiness. So I talked to them about it, and I thought this was something because for a family member, whether you die in a training event, you die of the psychological impacts, or you die of enemy fire, the end result is the same for the family, right? So we got to recognize that. You really never hear much about that. But we have a lot of training accidents, and we have this. Yeah, hey, suicides in the active duty, last I checked, was exceeded the national standard, the national average, suicides. 22 for our veterans, 20 to 22 a day, right? That's a lot. That's a lot. First responders, God bless them. A lot of our first responders are former military, suffering from PTS because they didn't get any help. New Hampshire's trying to rewrite their law now so they can get them help. I think that's great. Fully supporting Governor Sununu's efforts on that, right? I think that's great. They need to do it. Because first responders, 14 to 15 a day. First responders, you think they're not out there putting it on the line? From 2001 to 2013, more first responders were killed in the United States than in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. That's a statistic for you, right? So first responders are all wrapped into this too. 33% of the New Hampshire State Police are former military. 1/3 of his force. I talked to the colonel about it. So anyways, so it's pretty good. That's why, you know, responsibility, leader, and he said that he's putting a program together. So I think that's great. All right, at the end of the day, we got to stop this. I saw this in an Irish bar in Germany, of all places. And I said, man, that speaks volumes, right? After all is said and done, a lot more will be said than done. That's how our veterans and service members think about a lot of the programs. Hey, that's great, but we don't trust it. And we got to build that trust in them. That's what we got to do. Caring for veterans is a huge thing. That's me, Kandahar Airfield, after my helicopter crash. What saved our lives there, I think, was the fact that the helicopter did not explode into flame. Otherwise, there would have been some serious casualties, other than what there was just as a result of the crash and the dang thing spinning around. But bottom line is, caring for veterans requires a litany of things. I didn't make these things up. These things I pulled out of a number of things that I read, that I pulled out of talking to people coffee breath close with veterans, right? One-on-one across the table. Same thing here. These are other continued observations from veterans from all eras. I was glad to hear that the Trump administration is now going to recognize all eras of veterans for the home care stipend. That's huge. It was originally only pre-9/11 folks, or post-9/11 folks. My wife was eligible for it, but we didn't take it because not all the other eras were authorized it, and I didn't feel like that was a right thing to do, right? So, boom, they're going to make that happen. I know, I got guys going time, but Paul said take all the time you need, so I am. The third thing, right? First thing, you live your life, you're born into a community, that community takes care of you, it sends you to school, you play sports, you're on the cheerleading team, you're doing whatever it is you need to do inside that community. It's taking care of you, right? And then graduate from high school, some go off to college, then some go in the military from there, some go to service academies, go in the military from there. Some of them enlist. I did 11 days after high school. I enlisted, and I went in as Private Bolduc. I realized that, holy smokes, after digging my 6th foxhole, I was like, hey, wait a minute, I think I need an education, right? Because I'm digging these foxholes, and I really didn't mind digging foxholes because I come from a farming family. It's like, geez, I've been digging holes my whole life. There's this rock pile that I showed my wife up at my dad's farm that I moved for what reason I have no idea, from that side of the farm to that side of the farm routinely my entire life. And I tied it to some kind of punishment my dad had connected to me, like he found something out, like talking to somebody. And so he goes, I need you to move that rock pile back to where you... And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But anyways, so I was good at mindless work. I could do it. Dig a hole, get in there, get yourself all set up, grenade, that whole thing. But the problem I had with digging a foxhole was the lieutenant coming around and then going, hey, Private Bolduc, good foxhole. Fill it in. I need you to move it over there. Bless America. After doing that a couple times, I said to myself, boom, light goes on. I want to be the guy that tells the guy to move the foxhole, right?
I want to be that guy, right? So I'm like, hey, this is really good stuff here. So anyways, and who dug the platoon leader's foxhole? His radio operator. So he's walking around, you know, making sure range cards are good to go and everybody's good to go, telling people to move foxholes. And he'd always blame it on the company commander. He doesn't like it. Anyways, so you got this second thing you go into in the military, and they take care of you A to Z for the time that you're in there as best they can, and then you pop out the other end into this third thing, right, and you need help. And we talked about it before, you know, what do veterans need? Well, they get into this access to programs, connecting to the right services so you don't get service overwhelm, you know, oh my God, there's too many things happening. You know, you need all these things. You know, I always like to say this, you know, less than 1% serves, 99% can help. So this is my brain, right? They hooked me up to a machine, they looked at my brain, and it's not good when the doctor says to you, holy shit. This is a trained professional, and that's the best he could come out with, right? So this little arrow thing here is the front of the brain, right? I thought, hell, it's pretty damn good. I got a lot of activity going on up there. He goes, no, that's all bad activity. That activity is supposed to be in the back here. And I go, that guy looks brain dead. What's he doing? And I go, so what does it mean? And he goes, you have the on switch on all the time, right? And so we need to get balance here. So the whole part of this TMS thing that I went through to help with TBI and PTS for me, and it also helps people that are addicted to opioids and things like that, was to get a little bit more normalcy here, right? Because this is wrong. That's my little brain, that's my little TBI, right? That's affecting my brain as well. But this is what you want. And my son's girlfriend, who goes to Purdue University, came with me, and her brain looked a lot like this, right? So I kind of got a kind of look at a, you know, 19-year-old, 20-year-old girl and what her brain looked like in comparison to my brain, my holy shit brain here that the doctor says I have. I'm like, wow, that's just unbelievable. So anyways, that's the kind of activity that we got going on up there. That's what gets in the way of us being normal. So boom, we go in. Now, this was one of my solutions. Best friend, family member, trusted companion, Victor. He's trained to do that, believe it or not. He is trained to do that. He's supposed to sit just like that, be cool, make me be cool, calm down my nerves, right? He's on the stage at Plymouth State University. Out in front of him are 700 athletes that I was talking to about teamwork and leadership and so on and so forth. So here he is, you know, the best friend. And he is great, right? I get a call about a year, 18 months before I retired. Guardian Angel said, hey, we've looked at you. We think you're a really good candidate for a dog, service dog. Would you like one? I said, sure. They sent me all the paperwork. We filled it all out. I'm telling you what, it's pretty extensive. They do all kinds of background checks because not everybody can have a service dog. There may be plenty of people that are qualified for a service dog, but you have to be able to take care of the service dog. There is a requirement. And if you can't take care of the service dog because you have to feed it a certain diet, you have to have it on insurance, you have to take it to the vet, you have, you know, and these are all costs that the recipient assumes, right? So there are many veterans out there that we would like to give service dogs to, but we can't because we gotta get the other part of their life squared away so that they can actually take care of the dog. Because the whole thing is, he takes care of me, I take care of him. He gets wiped down every day, he gets brushed every day, I brush his teeth every day, I play with him every day, he gets his downtime. Him and I are like, you know, 24/7, boom, boom, boom. The most significant thing that he does for me is when I stop breathing at night, he wakes me up. My wife used to do that.
Not very calmly, I might add.
Yeah. Because she couldn't sleep, right? you know? She couldn't sleep. So now the dog's there, and it allows her to be able to sleep. Now, she gets in bed, she turns her back, I don't hear from her for 8 hours. What the hell, you know? Don't you love me anymore? See these black eyes? So anyways, good old Victor, trusted companion, becomes involved in every part of my life. And I love him. He's a lifesaver, and he can save lives. And the VA should not be in the business of training and doing service dogs. They cost $25,000 to train. You got to get sponsors. You got to raise money, which I'm involved in, right? Northrop Grumman sponsored him. And it's a lengthy process. He's born, he's set aside for recipient Bolduc. He goes through 6 months of foster training. Then after 6 months of foster training, the trainers come in. He went through an additional 12 months. Then I got the call, come down and pair with him. It took 2 weeks of pairing. Now it's up to the dog. They put you in the middle of a field, nobody's around. I got his name, I've never seen him before, he's never seen me. He comes out, I go, Victor, come. He comes over, I pet him, I love him. Oh, you're a good boy, yes, you're a good boy, yeah. Oh, good boy, Victor. And he comes, and then I say, oh, downstay, Victor. Oh, yeah, you're not gonna downstay, you want some more loving? Okay. So we, you know, I love on him. Now you can downstay. That's it. Good. No? Oh, we're going to stretch, yeah. So anyways, he decides whether the pairing's going to go right or not. He picks me. I don't pick him. When I saw him, I was like, oh, my God. You know, his heart melts. I'll show you some pictures here in a second here. But he is my lifeline. I'm driving again. I am sleeping better. I am better at crowds. He makes me feel relaxed. He's right there. Anytime anything happens, boom, I am, you know, he's just right there. He just feeds off of me. So it's really cool. This is a day in the life. This is Victor in Croatian Air. They gave him his own seat. He's having a hell of a time. This is Victor. I was, you know, he sensed that I needed a little bit more loving than I was getting. So he just laid right across me. This is Victor integrating himself in with my 3 grandchildren, sitting on the couch there while we're watching television, doing whatever. This is Victor in a large crowd, helping me at Plymouth State University with all the athletes. This is Victor in the car. My wife thinks this is a real safety hazard. But Victor and I think it's pretty cool. And so do people that drive by us. They're like, it's probably a safety hazard for them because they're doing the double take and not paying attention to the road. But he decided that that was where he needed to be in order to help me. And it really does help me, keeps me calm and so on and so forth. This is Victor on the Adriatic in Croatia on a boat with Sharon and I. And then, oops, I went the wrong way. And then this is Victor shortly after the day my dad died. I needed some rest. I took care of him for 6 weeks. He died of terminal cancer in April. And Victor thought I needed a little extra help. So he was my pillow that day, right? He's a chick magnet. This is at Dean College. We were late for everything that we had to do there because the girls were just like, oh my God, right? My wife is very patient with that. There's Victor and I in Planet Fitness, getting it on. Victor's my spotter. Make sure nothing happens to me. There he is, you know, sitting on the couch and, you know, snuggling up while I'm checking email and stuff like that. Here I am playing with my granddaughter, and he's just sitting there hanging out, you know, watching me do that. This is him charming the flight attendants at the airport. Gives them a little shot of the manhood there, and smile and a wink, and we're on the plane. And then there's Victor playing ball, you know, just show that he gets some downtime, because a lot of people ask, does he get any downtime? And aside from the fact that this has been a huge honor for me, and it has, I'm very humbled by everyone in here and all the people that support veterans, and Hunt, all the work that you do. You work tirelessly. Hunt is panicking right now because we're way over time. I could see this out of the corner of my eye, right? He's going to have to put Ben Gay on his arm tonight. You know, he's going to have tennis elbow, right? Great man, keeps everybody on track. Sir, what you do here is unbelievable. What you do for our service members in terms of their insurance, everything here. You're just wonderful people. I'm glad to have WMUR here and the governor, former governor, and Jack Heath and Tony and our National Guard representatives. Thank you so, so much for what you do for our service members and what everyone here does for our community. I'm humbled, honored. I'm proud to be from New Hampshire, and I'm proud to have had the opportunity to serve my country. God bless you all, and thank you very much for your patience during my briefing.